We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Bucknell Men's Cross Country Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decade of the 2000s. We've got a great group of alums joining head coach Kevin Donner and one of our current student athletes, Owen Chase. Owen is a junior captain from Massachusetts on the team, and we thank him for being on the call tonight. My name's Todd Newcomb, and I want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor. Geisinger has done a great job throughout the pandemic in the local area around Lewisburg here, and they do a fantastic job day in and day out with our student athletes here at Bucknell. So thank you to Geisinger for all of their support. So I'm going to introduce our guest for tonight, then I'll turn it over to Coach Donner. So our first guest from the class of 2003 is Greg Costello. Greg was a three-time All-Patriot League selection in cross country. He was an All-East selection in 2003 where he finished fourth. He qualified for the NCAAs in 2001, finishing 127th in that race. In outdoor track, he was the Patriot League champion in the 5,000-meter run in 2001 and the 10K in 2002. He was a four-time All-Patriot League selection. He was All-East in 2002 with a fourth-place finish in the 10K. And in indoor track, he was the Patriot League champion in the 3,000-meter run in 2002 and a three-time All-Patriot League selection. He won the Bison Club Award at the department's Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest from the class of 2007 is Matthew Forys. Matt was an All-Patriot League first-team selection in 2006. In track, he was a Patriot League champion in the 10K in 2007. He was a two-time All-Patriot League selection and a three-time NCAA regional qualifier. In indoor track, Matt was the Patriot League champion in both the 3,000 and 5,000-meter runs, as well as the track athlete of the meet at the 2007 championship. He was All-Patriot League in 2007, All-East in 2007, with a first-place finish in the 3,000-meter run. Matt won the Ronald J. P. Pedrick Award at the department's Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest from the class of 2008, Wallace Campbell, was an All-Patriot League second-team selection in 2006 and a first-team selection in 2007. In outdoor track, he was a two-time All-Patriot League selection, and in indoor track, he was an All-Patriot League selection in 2005, All-East in 2006 with a seventh-place finish in the 3,000-meter run. And our final guest from the class of 2010, Andrew Heubner. He was an All-Patriot League first-team selection in cross-country in 2009. In outdoor track, he was the Patriot League champion in the steeplechase in 2009. He was a three-time All-Patriot League selection, All-East in 2010 with a fourth-place finish in the steeplechase. And he was a two-time NCAA regional qualifier in that event as well, with his best finish being 10th in 2009. So, Coach, another talented group of alums. I'm going to turn the call over to you.
All right. Well, first of all, guys, thanks for coming on this call. It's great seeing some of you, all of you. It's been a while for some of you, but these have been great calls. They're a lot of fun. And just hearing all those great memories that Todd was talking about. I remember every one of those races, and they were awesome. You guys were a great crew to coach. Some of you guys were teammates, overlapped a little bit, but you guys actually covered the entire decade there. But before we begin going over some memories, I'm going to ask each of and every one of you to talk about your days. What have you been doing with yourself since you left Bucknell? Jobs, family, children, things like that. So we'll start with Matt over there.
Hey, great. Well, it's great to see everyone as well. Thanks for having me. So I'm coming to you live from New York City in my little studio apartment. Post Bucknell, I started working right away, but I also continued running for quite a few years. And that balance was very tricky, but made it work and luckily qualified for the Olympic trials in the marathon one year. Since then, I've been working for New York Roadrunners. I'm a senior director of business operations. We produce the New York City Marathon amongst probably 50 plus events a year and have free community and youth programs throughout New York City's 5 boroughs. Yeah, that's about it. I recently invested in a little beach condo in New Jersey, so that's exciting. And my brother has a daughter on the way, so I have a niece on the way, which is very exciting.
It's great that you were able to stay involved in the running community there.
Oh, it was, I mean, it's a really tough balance, and it took negotiations with work to figure out how I could have less hours to, get more time for training. And it took a lot of commitment, but it was definitely one of the best decisions to keep pursuing running.
Great, great. All right, thanks, Matt. Wallace, tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, I went to grad school in Clemson right out of college and got involved in the running club and was the president for 2 years. And we had a very strong club team with some grad students, some undergrads, and really got involved in the college club scene. And then after grad school, worked a little bit, and now I've been living in Dallas, Texas for 5 years and in the consumer finance business. And I've got 2 daughters. One's 2 years old and one's about 6 months. So I've got a lot of little girls running around making noise.
Yeah.
And yeah, been enjoying a little.
Are you married, Wallace?
Oh, yes, I am married.
All right. Gotcha. All right, let's go to Andrew Heubner.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. So after graduating in 2010, I moved back home to New Hampshire and stayed pretty involved in running as well. I just basically went right into working at the local running store and stayed pretty involved in the sport. I also managed to qualify for an Olympic trials in the marathon in 16. I think Forys was 12. So stayed pretty involved competitively through that, and then married my wife in 2017, and we have daughters 2.5 now, and our little COVID project is what we're calling him, but we're foster parents, and just took on a little baby boy back in March. So he's been with us for about 7 months now. So that's been kind of the latest.
All right. And let's go with Greg there.
All right, the elder statesman of the call. Yeah, so happy to be here. Good to see everybody. It's crazy. Todd and I were talking. I've been out of college for about 17 years, which just blows my mind. And it's been a pretty wild 17 years. So left Bucknell, moved to Chicago. Also stayed pretty active running. In fact, probably ran more post-collegiately than I did in college. Applied for the Olympic trial. So we have, it was 2008 for me, which is pretty cool. Wow. So we have the 08, the 2012 and 16 trials covered, which is pretty cool.
Wallace, you didn't qualify for any trial? What's the deal, man?
I tried. I tried. Didn't quite make it.
All right.
Yeah, so it's running's been super important to me. It's how I met my wife. I actually worked at a running store about 12 years ago. Met my wife working at that running store, and went from working there to working for Nike. So I've worked for Nike for the last 12 years. I've moved all over the country. So we've lived in Chicago, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Portland, Oregon, and now we're back in Chicago. We've been here for 2 years. My wife Jenny and I have 3 girls. Another common theme on this call, so a lot of girls. I have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So our hands are pretty full right now. But it's great. I love having girls. Unfortunately, I think the ages are just far enough off that I don't think we'll have them all on the same cross country team at some point. But it was a goal and a hope of mine. But at least we'll have 2, hopefully, if they choose to run. I'm not going to force them. But yeah, so we're happy here in Chicago, just waiting for the pandemic to end so that I can reconnect with some friends.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to ask a question for all of you. We're going to start with Greg here. Greg, the other 3 guys were all recruited by me, but Greg was the only one who was recruited by legendary coach Art Goulden and ran for Art Goulden for a couple years. But Greg, why don't you take us back to the beginning and tell us about your recruiting experience and how you ultimately chose Bucknell?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to tap into my memory. First of all, I don't know if you know this, Coach Donner, but my grandma is a Bucknell alum. So she graduated she was class of 52.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I've always been aware of Bucknell. She had some photos of like the library in their house, and so I've always had a connection with Bucknell. And when it came time to choose where I was going to go to school, Bucknell was obviously on the list. Had a great recruiting trip. Have always loved the campus. I don't know, for some reason I was always looking for more of a kind of rural setting, and just really enjoyed the atmosphere on campus. Also had a Scott Sehan was another alum. He graduated 99, I believe.
Who was that?
Scott Sehan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we overlapped 1 year. He went to my same high school. So that was another connection that I had with Bucknell. And I'd say, probably most importantly was the connection with Coach Golden. I had heard a lot about him, not only through Scott, but just through the running community. The program had a pretty storied history, and he was a very unique man, very kind of quiet and reserved, but just commanded your respect right away. And I just remember the recruiting trip, just leaving and just knowing that I wanted to run for that man. So that was a pretty big draw for me. Obviously it didn't pan out as I had anticipated, but it was great to get Coach Donner on, and I felt like, personally from a running standpoint, didn't miss a beat.
Right. Andrew, tell us your story. How'd you end up at Bucknell?
Yeah, so I remember feeling really sort of the one thing that stands out most is just my recruiting trip there, and getting to interact and sort of talk with the team, and immediately sort of felt sort of a sense of belonging, and sort of just being super welcome. And I remember leaving and just being ready, at that point I was just feeling really ready to make a choice about it. And the earlier I made that choice, the better chance I would have had to get in. So I made that choice, and I felt super confident about it. And, I still am, really happy about how it all turned out, and felt like I was able to develop as a runner, but also as a person. So I really kind of go back to the team being so welcoming and so fun.
All right, great.
You were all right too.
I was all right. That's good. That's good. Came in spite of me. Let's go to Wallace. Wallace has a unique story, I know.
Yeah, I'm from Alabama, and nobody in Alabama's heard of Bucknell, but coincidentally, my high school cross-country coach was a runner at Bucknell, Kevin Wetherill. And I think he ran some with Craig.
Yeah.
And he had a storied history of shenanigans, but from what I heard. But so that's how I found out.
I coached
about
him
it.
1 year. He did a fifth year.
Yeah.
And that was my first year, was his fifth year. So I had him for a year too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he talking to some of the older guys who had already gone. Everybody was talking about Kevin Wetherill's shenanigans. So it's funny to hear stories about my former coach. But yeah, so I came up for a recruiting trip the day. I think it was a home meet on the golf course. And I don't remember who my host was, but I ended up staying at Stucco that night, and we sort of, I guess we had a party there. And
come on.
Yeah. So I don't think that's where I was supposed to stay, but I ended up staying at Stucco. Does the team still live in that house?
Stucco does not exist anymore.
It's condemned.
They closed it. So.
Probably necessary, but yes, I stayed there, had a great time, and it was the one place that I went that actually felt like it had a real cohesive team versus just people running. So enjoyed that, and then just kind of after that, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and just winged it. So glad I did it.
Yeah, it was great. You're still my only recruit ever from the state of Alabama. So.
Not surprised.
we try. We try.
Yeah.
So we offered a kid from Louisiana a couple of years ago. He took us down. So
Too cold.
Too cold. All right, Matt, tell us your story. How'd you end up at Bucknell?
Yeah, well, I'm a Jersey boy, so I wanted to go to school in the general Mid-Atlantic Northeast region. So, I was looking for a school that had that balance of academics, and I wanted a Division I cross country and track and field program. And as much as I wanted Division I wanted a program that showed that it developed athletes that would ultimately qualify for nationals. That was my goal coming into college athletics. And so I wanted to find a school that had that nice balance. I always felt I was undertrained in high school. I was running 30 miles a week, and I wanted to go to a school that I knew I could develop into, something more. So found Bucknell, started chatting with Coach Donner, went on my official visit, applied early decision, case closed. And it was a nice peace of mind senior year, knowing where you were going so early and being all set. So yeah, I fell in love with campus. I fell in love with all the people there. The team was super welcoming, and yeah, there's not much you can't love about Bucknell.
All right, great. Let's let Owen Chase ask some questions here a little bit.
So my first question would be, what advice, if any, do you have for me or anyone else in the program just about the college cross country experience? We can go in the same order. We can start with Matt.
Oh man. Okay. Great question. So, my personal experience at Bucknell, specifically running wise, I came in injured. And so my freshman year was kind of like, we'll see what we can pull together. And it ended up being better than expected. The problem was after that year, we had a really small junior and senior class. And so I started to feel like I had to take on the pressure of, performing. And I kind of buckled a little bit under that pressure. And so I think what I would give to you as advice, just with the program and your experience with training specifically, is enjoy every minute of it and really just embrace that. And it took me a while to realize that the sport still needs to be fun for you to perform really well. And I had to re-fall in love with running and take the pressure off a little bit to really be able to perform. So from a training perspective, that's what I would say. And from a team perspective, just embrace your teammates. They're still some of the best friends that I have to this day. And I just look back so fondly on all the memories we have at different races, at Stucco, at, all of those times. Just take full advantage of it, train your butt off, and just enjoy every minute.
I'll give you a little history on Matt, Owen. Matt was a good runner his first 3 years where he was helping us, but his senior year, he became a national caliber runner. It was like night and day. And, he was, NCAA cross country qualifier, NCAA steeplechase qualifier, and the IC4A indoor 3,000 meter champion. That's a heck of a senior year. And I remember my AD, John Hart at the time, who's now at Richmond, came up to me and said, I've never heard of this Matt Forys guy. How come I never heard of this guy? And I said, well, he's really good now. He was all right his first 3 years, but he's legit right now. So that's a pretty good story that just came out of nowhere his senior year and became a national caliber runner.
Wish I had a fifth year.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, Wallace.
Yeah, I'd say I think everybody would second the thing about having fun. It's so easy to just let things stress you out, and I didn't handle pressure well at all, at least my first 2 or 3 years. But I think one thing that I finally learned by the time I left was like how to be tough. Like just don't have a terrible race. Like I was such a wimp to start with. I'd have just awful races, finish nearly last, and just like walk at the end. But then by senior year, I didn't have any bad races. I was a pretty tough runner. No matter how bad the conditions were, I really stuck with it. And just it took me a long time to learn just how to be tough and stick with it and really try hard every time. So I don't know how you do that, but just something you gotta learn. So
All right, hopefully this one doesn't get me in trouble. Bacon?
Ooh.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say just not to get too up or too down, depending on the result. And as you get older and more comfortable in the program, don't be afraid to take some swings and go big, And I think, obviously leaning on Coach Donner for advice throughout that progression, but I think that taking some swings later in your career, you can really pay off in terms of results within races and in training. And I think that in combination with just not getting up and too down, depending on what your result is or what your season was like, there's always something else to look forward to.
All right, and then Greg.
Hey, Owen. Yeah, I mean, I second everything the group said. I mean, without sounding too kind of cheesy, I mean, I just really embrace every minute. I distinctly remember every time alumni would come back and they'd chat with you, they'd say, just, it goes quick, like embrace every minute. And it's so true. I mean, I still think back and I'm like, oh man, I do miss, those days. I miss, running competitively in college. I miss, the camaraderie. I miss the teammates. Embrace every run and workout, even though they're not all going to be fun. When you get out on the road with your buddies, that's not always going to be there. I mean, when you do leave college, I'm sure you'll keep running most likely. You may join a running club and you'll join them a couple times a week, but then you end up running a lot on your own and you look back and it's just such an awesome opportunity to really get to know people and to bond with people. And, that's really, to me, something that you really can try to embrace, like try to slow down. It's so much easier said than done. But if you can just slow down and take in the moment, I think that will also make you a better runner. If you just kind of embrace the moment, whether it's, you're about to enter a big race, cherish it. And I think the results will follow.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm looking at all four of you guys, and I see obviously some royalty here of our program, but all four of you had some, besides your ups, you've had your downs too. I remember distinctly some times where all four of you at one point or another struggled, but the perseverance that all four of you had was outstanding, and obviously it paid off, and you guys were, some of the better runners we've ever had in school history. And the fact that all four of you kept running after you graduated, I'm really proud of that. So shows that you really enjoyed your experience, enjoyed the sport. Our next question, I'm going to ask all four of you as well. Your most memorable experience at Bucknell as part of the program. We'll start with Wallace. What was your most memorable experience? It doesn't necessarily have to be running either.
80s, the Team 80s party.
Oh,
and so I'm a huge fan of 80s music. For the last 12 years, I've been keeping a curated list of the top 500 80s songs in my personal order. I'm not kidding. I can share this with y'all. And I think you'll think it's pretty cool. But so the 80s parties were my favorite.
Is that called cheesy tunes? I've heard that term.
Cheesy tunes.
Yeah, I've heard that term.
So, and I had some wild outfits. I had like this pink and black spandex pants and wild jacket. And I'd say that was my favorite, but second favorite would be with the junior and senior league meets. We had the worst conditions. I was looking back at some pictures today, and there's one where we're all covered in mud, just like looking at each other. And I remember it being
I remember
raining
that.
and cold. Yeah. But, and that was the team. It took a lot of the pressure off because the conditions were so bad. It was just like laughably bad. So you couldn't be nervous at the line. You're just like, let's run hard and finish this. So those were good memories of racing, but cheesy tunes and leagues.
All right. Andrew, most memorable experience.
I'm just going to go straight to a running one. For me, it was no question the 2010 outdoor league meet when we just feel like finally broke through and won Patriot Leagues. That felt like, and we squeaked it by.
2-point win over Army.
And it just felt like this sort of culmination of so much work. And it was basically I still had some individual meets after that, but it was such a culmination of sort of everything we had worked for. And, again, not to get too cheesy, but it really felt special. And I still think about that feeling of when we, finally, when the 4x4 was over, just chills.
That's my most memorable experience as well as a coach, was beating Army for the first time.
Yeah, and it
wasn't the first time we beat Army. It was the first time we beat Army and Navy at the same meet.
Yeah, and that was after such just sort of a heart-wrenching indoor meet where it felt like we had it and it sort of slipped away, and then it was like this redemption after that. So,
and being at home was big, I remember.
Yeah.
There was quite a bit of alumni for that meet, and I remember we rushed the field with everyone at the end. Like it was a pretty epic day for anybody that's ever been involved in the program. It was really special.
There's some picture out there that there's a lot of pictures of people running onto the field after that moment, and I just remember looking at it and I was like, who's that guy on the ground? And I just collapsed in this heap of some whatever. It was this it was just a crazy emotional time.
All right. Matt, most memorable experience at Bucknell?
Yeah, I'm going to go to a running one too. I have so many wonderful memories with teammates at Cheesy Tunes and everything, but the one thing that I always go back to was the day that I qualified for cross country nationals, because it was kind of what I had put everything into. That was the ultimate goal going into college. And I had gotten injured junior year in the spring. I had a stress fracture, and my summer training was in a pool or on a bike. And I remember coming back that season and just being so nervous that I was going to lose my chance. And I think it sort of just drove me to a new place. And on that day, out at Lock Haven, I just went for it. Sort of what, Bacon was saying before, there's certain days where you just got to put it all out there and take a chance. And I just locked into the lead pack, and I just shut my mind off and just held on for as long as possible. And I just remember, and I was bawling at the end of the race. I was so emotionally drained, but excited, but it was just so many emotions running through me. And that day was just, I'll never forget it for sure. And I had teammates there, I had family there. It was amazing. And the cherry on top was Leanna qualified as well that day. So, as a member of the women's team that year. And so it was really special. She was one of my, she's one of my best friends from college, and it was just such a great day.
Yep. I remember that was an awesome race. So, all right, Greg, your most memorable experience.
I thought a lot about this. And it's hard to identify one moment. My mind goes more towards the non-running moments, to be completely honest. And whether it's the time we spent on campus when nobody else was there. So some of my most memorable moments were during winter break when we would come back early. I just felt like we sort of run amok and we had like nobody else was there. And that seemed to be some of the better memories that I had, or the summers that I would spend sort of training with teammates. I was fortunate to spend this summer before my grad year and the summer after my grad year at Bucknell, and whether it was playing on, we had a softball team at the time, just other ways to bond with people. From a running standpoint, I mean, there's a bunch that jump to mind. Penn relays was always super special to me, and because it was always at that time of year where it was starting to transition to summer and the weather was nice and the school was starting to wrap up. You know, of course, there's so many memories from a running standpoint that pop to mind. But it's all kind of jumbled together, and it's just so many good memories.
Great. While you're here, Greg, who was a teammate you admired the most throughout your career, and why?
I would say Ron Hess was always somebody who I looked up to, both on and off the track. I don't know if you guys know of Ron. I know he lives in Lewisburg, right outside Lewisburg.
He's the Lewisburg High School cross country coach, and he won a state title last year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, the guy's a winner. He's and I met his kids, his sons last summer, and I know they're studs and going to be great runners as well. But during my time at Bucknell, he was a couple years older than me. He was just fierce on the track. I mean, like every time he would go to race, he was just nasty. He had a nasty kick. I remember a race where he lost his shoe, and just like managed to outkick all of these studs in the last lap. And then off the track, he was just a super, nice, super nice guy, and was always very generous to the underclassmen, and sort of brought us along, and somebody that I to this day still look up to. And while I don't stay in as close of contact as I'd like, we still reconnect periodically, which is great. He's one of them. There's a lot of alum that I looked up to as well.
Well, Ron was mentioned yesterday by Dave Bruffenbrenner. Remember him?
Yeah.
He chose Ron Hess too as the guy that he looks up to.
Yeah.
Ron was inducted in our Hall of Fame a couple years ago.
Awesome. Well deserved.
Really neat. Matt, who was the person that you looked up to the most?
Well, right now, I don't know on your screen, but he's next to me. So Greg Costello for sure. I mean, I admired Greg before I even got to Bucknell. Obviously, I did some research, and Greg had qualified for nationals, and I was following all of his results. And so I was like, can't wait to meet him, especially when I found out that he was going to be there for a fifth year. So he and I overlapped my freshman year, and he stayed a fifth year. So, from day one, Greg was just such an easy person to talk to lean on when you're having, I was coming in injured, and he was just there to support me every step of the way. And I just looked up to him for that. And then, to be honest, that has continued. He kept running post-college, and I've just always kind of leaned on him either for advice or anything. And so I've looked up to Greg. I still look up to Greg. Whenever he comes to New York, I make him hang out with me. So yeah, it's definitely Greg. He was amazing, and 100%, he's helped me accomplish everything that I've accomplished running wise. So definitely that guy. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming back your fifth year. So, Wallace, who did you admire the most during your time? Which teammate?
Forys in his senior year, he, as you mentioned, he went from good to great, and just really awesome to see that happen and be on the team when it happened. And it pushed me to get better, tougher, more consistent. And it made me a lot better junior and senior year. I wasn't able to duplicate the good to great thing. I felt I got a little bit better senior year, but not
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
Not like what Forys did, because we were, my sophomore year, Forys and I were neck and neck in most races. And then my junior year was I wasn't even close, but it definitely inspired me to be better. Just seeing somebody on the team that was that good, it it was just nice to have somebody that much better that I could really look up to.
All right. And now Andrew, who'd you?
I don't want Forys to get too big of a head here. I'm going to do two. So definitely Forys. I came in as a freshman. He was a senior. So I came in sort of right when he was, I didn't know Forys when he was this so-called good runner before he became a great runner. And he was always a great runner to me. And, you know, I really tried to emulate what he did that senior year as much as I could. And yeah, I think that everything he did that year was so impressive. And, you know, I appreciate everything that he did for me sort of as a, just from a mentoring perspective when I was there too. The other shout out I'll put out there is Kevin McGoldrick. Just because when I was talking about like not being afraid to take swings with your training later in your career, I think what Kevin was able to do going into our senior year cross country season was really incredible. Like just the amount of focus that we all collectively had as a class, I think, going into that year, but him specifically was able to just kind of put together this sort of, I think for him, just it's a perfect season. And without that was really impressive.
Yeah, just to give you a little background, Kevin was a solid runner for us, but his senior year, he came out of nowhere and became a front runner. And I remember you and him were always up front, like 1-2 for us at all the meets. And he was first team all league that year as well, you know, so he came out of nowhere his senior year in cross country. So see there, Owen, there's hope for you. Huh? All these guys had huge senior years.
he ran 8. He was more of a mid D guy too. So, you know.
Yeah. He was like he was on our 4x8 team.
Yeah.
And then he was, you know, what is he, about 5th or 6th, 7th in the league in cross country his senior year. That was during the American years when they were national caliber teams, wasn't it? Weren't they up there, American? I don't remember. They were
yeah, for sure.
They were the big team. So good. All right. Well, since we just talked about Owen, why don't you throw down a question at these guys?
Yeah. So what advice would you give for networking and finding the right job after college? We can start with Greg.
Yeah. So I would, I think from a networking standpoint, I would certainly tap into the alumni base. I mean, if there's something of interest, you know, make that connection. I think it's really important how you make that connection, make it very personal. You know, I do get quite a few notes from not necessarily cross country or track and field alum, but just alumni from Bucknell, and you can tell when a lot of thought goes into kind of the note and reaching out. So be very thoughtful with how you reach out. Maybe approach it more from a looking to learn standpoint versus looking for a job standpoint. I mean, the resources are, I mean, obviously through the program, you know, there are a lot of great alumni out there that would be more than willing to help. And it may not lead to a job with them, but somewhere else. And I would just say from a career standpoint, trial and error. Don't be afraid to take some risks. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, do something different. I think it's interesting looking back after 17 years. I'm happy with what I'm doing now, but for a while I wasn't. And it was really hard to leave and sort of transition to a completely different field. And I think it's very easy to kind of keep doing what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, 17 years later, 3 kids later, it's like, I can't reinvent myself right now. So just make sure you're taking risks and you find out what you want to do, which is not always easy.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely would agree with Greg. Finding the right job for you, it's not easy, especially right out of school. I interned in finance and I took a job right out of school. Actually, my first interview when I did the internship was with Bridget Dean Hamill, who was a Bucknell alumni on the track and field team. So I walked into the interview and I was so nervous. And I walk in and she goes, so you ran for Bucknell? Or you ran for Bucknell? I'm like, yep. She's like, so did I. And I'm like, immediately felt so much better. But anyway, so I worked in finance for quite a few years, and what I really struggled with was the balance with work and with running, because I was still trying to pursue my running career. And it was a bumpy road for a few years until we figured out how to like make it work. So yeah, it took me about 6 years to find my passion, which is still within the running industry. And from there, I've kind of just grown into what my current role is in business ops and project management and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've always leaned on not only obviously the Bucknell alumni network is very strong, but the running community in general is really strong. So now I currently work in the New York City running scene, and people are there to help. So I think just the running community in general, like it's one of the few sports you can continue after college, and you can continue it in a professional way, or you can continue it as a hobby. But that community is really strong, and we all lean on each other. So I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, thank you. Andrew.
So I like I said before, I am one of those guys that kind of stuck with the running industry after college, and I didn't mention it before, but I currently work for Hoka up here in kind of the New England area. But I guess for me, like I didn't personally like lean on any specific alumni connection, but I will kind of go back to just how important that was for me going into the school and as like just an asset of the school in general, even though I didn't end up, kind of following a path, with, something specific in mind. I kind of just kept following the running passion, I guess, and kind of ended up where I am. But yeah, I can't say enough about how important the alumni, base was when I was applying and being kind of unsure about what I wanted to do. That was kind of a peace of mind for me. I think that was important.
I remember when you were running some pretty high mileage for a while there, Andrew. What kind of mileage were you running for that about a year?
When I was in school?
No, when you were getting ready for the marathon.
Yeah, I mean, there were I was doing, definitely over 120. I had some weeks where I was in like the mid 120s on 6 days of taking a day off in there too. So I was flying pretty close to the sun, as they say, and it did end up kind of biting me in terms of injuries and things like that. But I have no regrets. I don't know if I would have done it exactly the same way, with 2020 hindsight, but I definitely went for it, and I have no regrets about that.
All right.
And then
That's not related to the question at all, though, Owen. That's off track.
Yeah, I'd say talk with as many people as possible and just figure out what they do and what their company does. And then just be thinking, how could you help that company, even if it's something that you have no interest in, and just be thinking in that mindset of how could I add value to whatever this company does. And then you might think of something that, hey, this is a strength of mine and it's a company I think is doing good work. And then you make that fit. And that mindset helps you be just genuinely interested in that position. And that's something that you would think that everybody who's applying for jobs is truly interested in the job that they're applying for. But I find that most of the time they're just trying to make some money, versus other people are really interested, come in with great questions. They want to help, want to add value. Those are the kind of people that you want to hire.
All right. Thanks, guys. Well, we're getting near the end, but I have one more question for each of you. This is my 20th year. Can you believe that, Greg? It's been 20. So, and I've had a pretty good career there. I've had some successes. I've had some failures. But what advice would you give me as the current head coach of Bucknell? We'll start with Greg, one of my first guys I ever coached at Bucknell.
Yeah, it is crazy, Coach, that it's been 20 years. This is a tricky question. I don't know exactly what I would change from certainly from a coaching standpoint. I'm not a coach. I had some interest in becoming a coach, and who knows, maybe someday I'll become a high school coach with my daughters, and I'll be reaching out to you for some advice. But I would say the one thing I think I would like to see more of, and I apologize if this already happens, but just going back to Owen's question around sort of networking, and perhaps, Coach, you could tap into sort of that alumni network and connect some of us with the program, whether it's, especially now that we're so comfortable with this Zoom virtual environment, we could easily set up, maybe like smaller group sessions for people that might be interested in working for Nike or for Hoka. I can only imagine that there probably are some guys in the program that would love to learn more. So I think more of that like student athlete approach and helping to sort of connect the dots. Obviously your focus is on running, but just a thought. I mean, I personally would love it if you reached out to me and said, hey.
I'm taking notes about that. That's a great idea. Especially with the Zoom area.
Yeah.
Like if people want to hire, come in, hey, we're going to have an alum from such and such a year from such and such a company is going to be on. If anybody on the team wants to meet this person, we'll go Thursday at 8 p.m. or something like that. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Take that advice.
All right. There you go.
Good job.
Thanks.
Matt?
Yeah, so I think my advice, it's not training wise. I think, you do a great job, and I think we worked really well together. My advice is coming from more of a personal standpoint, is mostly just creating as inclusive of an environment as possible for all athletes. Times are a little different now than when I was in school, but my senior year, I was coming to terms with the fact that I was gay, and I didn't really have someone, like there was no one else on the team that was out at that time, and I didn't really know who to turn to, and I think it's much different now, but I would just say, like, creating whatever kind of environment to know that you're there for every runner of every type of sexual orientation, race, anything, is always a good move. When I did come out about a year after school, the relief I felt and the stress that kind of like was taken off my shoulders, it really just changed my running. It changed my approach to life. I was happier. So yeah, I mean, anything you can do as a coach to make that environment as inclusive as possible it pays dividends in the end. And from a happiness perspective, but also runners will perform better because they feel part of something. So I think that's where I would go with.
That's great advice, Matt. And the university has done a wonderful job as well with that, so yeah. I think it's better than it was 10, 15 years ago.
For sure.
All right. Wallace Campbell?
Double Michigans. Just kidding. Yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about the training, but yeah, it kind of dovetailing off of what Forys said. I felt like junior and senior year, we just had so much more of a cohesive team that I enjoyed so much more just being around. Like freshman year, I hardly felt like I did anything with the team and just sort of wanted to do my own thing. But junior and senior year is when I really felt like I was more part of the team. It just helped me enjoy it, and it just helped me enjoy it and be a better runner because I was calmer and enjoying it instead of trying to leave as soon as practice was done, everything like that. And I don't know how you do that, but maybe it's just up to the people on the team. But I do feel like having that cohesive team really helps performance. And so that's almost more than training, is something you should keep an eye on, is how's the team morale doing? Are there any people bringing the team down? And that's just very important.
All right. And Andrew, what advice you have for me?
You guys, that was all really good advice. I've got nothing that good. I was just going to say that straight up.
All the 70s guys just said 5 in the morning, 10 at night.
Yeah. Well, I guess my first question, Donner, is do you still do, when you're writing the training plan for the week, do you still write like 8 to 10 or 12?
I have a pretty wide range, don't I, Owen?
You should just make it 8 to 10 or 14.
Oh, okay. I do
No, I got
remember.
nothing.
I do remember increasing the mileage with your group, Andrew, where it used to be 6 to 10, and then the norm became 8 to 12, if I remember right. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
in all seriousness, I think that just being, and I felt like you were always this way with us and for me personally, but just being open-minded and willing to kind of talk through, your individual strengths as a runner and sort of how to unlock that as a coach. I think that's just that's something that you don't really see in a lot of coaches, and I think that you've always been really sort of open to listening, and kind of coming up with a plan as individual as it needs to be. So
Yeah, I remember you were running some pretty good mileage at the end of your career at Bucknell. Yeah, I think you were in the 90s, if I remember right, maybe even 100. Does that sound right?
oh yeah, for sure.
Or you were one of the higher volume guys. Matt, we couldn't ever get above 70. I remember that was your sweet spot, was 70.
Love 70.
Every time we experimented with 80, you would get hurt. So we just said, hey, 70 miles, Matt. Don't go over 70. But yeah, that we still do that, and I'm really happy with the team I have right now, guys. Owen's a leader, and these guys, they had their season taken away, and we weren't allowed to practice as a team until just last week, but the leadership got these guys together every day and made them accountable, and they're running some very good mileage, some very good workouts, and we do an online training log, where I'm even on it. And by the way, I'm running every day too. I don't know if you're aware of that. I'm,
Awesome.
get back into it a little bit, but I use the training log that the guys use, and that makes me accountable every day because I don't want to skip days. I haven't had 2 days off in a row since March. I'm getting there, but these guys are they're really motivated. It's a great group. I told them, I said, hey, when you had your season taken away, you know what, it's not about the wins and losses. It's being with the guys. It's the relationships that you form and the fact that you're training together. And our guys are back and they're training together, and they just seem very happy and that they're with each other. And that's what it's all about, and, we'll put the uniform on again. That day is going to come. But you got to be ready, and by God, they're ready. We had a 5K time trial, and McMenamin ran 14:40 with a 4:25 last mile, and so obviously he's ready. And Owen had a big PR, 15:08 or something like that. Owen, not bad for a miler. So these guys are. You'd really be proud of these guys, because I'm proud of them. Of all you guys too, really proud of all you guys. You guys have ran great for us, and you've had great careers, great people, and I'm glad you came back.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, and I'm super excited to see what you guys do this season. Well, winter season.
There will be a winter season, I think, and there's going to be juggling indoor and cross country. It's the old European style. March cross country. So. Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm going to first turn my attention to Owen. And Owen, I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to get on the call tonight, and wish you the best of luck with the rest of the semester in your training. And as Coach mentioned, he's pretty confident there's going to be a season. I have no idea if there's going to be a season. Fingers crossed for you and for all the student athletes here. And when that time does come, I know all the alums will be rooting for you guys like they always do. The Spike Shoe family is just that. It's a big, giant family that really supports each other. And that segues perfectly into the alums on the call. Guys, thanks so much for being here. And first of all, as Coach mentioned, for everything you've done while you were wearing the orange and blue. and also since you left Bucknell. You know, without the support of our alumni, this Bike Shoot program is just clearly not what it has become. And I thank you for that. It's really great to see you guys. I mean, I told the guys last night, I live on Eagle Club Road, and over the years, I'm sure you guys all ran by my house about 1,000 times. And that was only a couple fleeting seconds that I would get to see you. So as an administrator, I'm not like Coach. I don't get to deal with you guys as much one-on-one, but this is great. A solid hour of catching up, and I really appreciate it. So for the people at home that tuned in to watch tonight, thank you for doing that, and go Bison.